To give people time to prepare, we're setting out the advice in a stepped approach.
Let's speak to one of those who will be preparing. We can talk to Lindsay Clements, who's shielding along with her 13-year-old daughter. And Rebecca, morning to you, Lindsay. And also we'll speak to Rebecca Steinfeld, who's head of policy at National Voices, a coalition of health and care charities in England. Lindsay, so you've been shielding your daughter as well. So, I mean, how has it been for you?
It's been quite difficult, to be honest. Lonely at times. I mean, my husband's here too. He's at uni, so he's been off since right at the start. But it has been difficult, to say the least.
So how much difference will all these changes make to you?
They're going to make quite a big difference because my daughter has ASD as well. So since they've sort of relaxed it anyway, I've tried to get her to go out for walks. I tried to get her to go into the local shop, but she had sort of a moment and couldn't enter. So I think it's going to take a lot longer than the 1st of August to get her back and ready to be going into places.
Let's come to Rebecca on this as well, because, you know, there are obvious concerns, Rebecca, but for some people, I imagine this would be quite an exciting time, won't it, to try and make sure that balance of not seeing anybody for a long time, along with trying to, you know, maintain your mental health at the same time and see some familiar faces.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, our member health and social care charities, so people like Diabetes UK and Macmillan, as well as people like Lindsay, who've been shielding and have been sharing their stories with us on a platform we set up called ourcovidvoices.co.uk, have shared really similar experiences, just feeling very ambivalent, relieved on the one hand, because of course this extreme self-isolation exacts a very heavy toll. But I think there's also a lot of concern amongst those who've been shielding about the vagueness of this new guidance, about the removal of practical support, and especially about the lack of employment protections.
And Rebecca, we do know that statutory sick pay will come to an end. I mean, is that a real concern for people?
Yes, I think the end of statutory sick pay is a real concern. The furlough scheme obviously is not being extended for people who've been shielding. There's a lot of vagueness from the announcement yesterday about what it means for a business to be COVID safe or COVID secure. I mean, does that mean sort of just a bottle of hand sanitizer in the office? Obviously, offices can't be sort of like sterile red zones with everyone in full PPE. But what if an office can't be safe for somebody? Or what if travelling to work can't be safe because you're packed on a tube train and can't socially distance? I think that Matt Hancock's announcement yesterday, he was relying on the goodwill of employers. And I think it's really weak and really dangerous. And I think we really need to beef up employment protections and make them enforceable so that nobody loses their job because they are in an extremely vulnerable clinical category.
On the issue of employment, Lindsay, let's come back to you then, because you are a frontline worker. Is that right? And give us an idea of what's happened with your job.
I am no longer a frontline worker. I've actually lost my job through this because my employment couldn't employ anyone else in my role because they had no certainty of how long this would go on for. And talking to them a few weeks ago, they couldn't guarantee my safety, obviously being a frontline worker. So I no longer have a job.
Which has got to be, you know, devastating for you, the rest of the family as well.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we're talking about me going self-employed with the qualifications I have because I have more control over it.
Just tell us a little bit about your daughter as well, because presumably I think she's not back at school yet, is she? She'll be going back in September.
Yeah, the plan is for her to go back in September.
Right, and how are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling a little bit nervous for her, but her school, she goes to a special school and we've got quite a lot of support, but I think it's going to take a little bit longer than it normally would.
And Lindsay, are you worried about, I mean, we've just been hearing about, you know, a surge in cases, local cases in Germany and situation in Australia as well. Does the thought of a second wave at some stage, does that concern you as well? When you think about not only your daughter, but obviously what you're mentioning there about going back to work, if that's possible at some stage.
Yeah, it does worry me. I mean, I love my job. That's why I do it. And I would love to be able to go back as soon as possible and get back to helping people. But like you say, with Germany, it's tripled in 3 days. So it is a big worry for my daughter's health and my own.
Rebecca, watching you, listening into what Lindsay is saying there and the situation that she is facing, sort of nodding and shaking your head at various points. What do you think, listening to just one case of what Lindsay is going through with her family at the moment?
Lindsay, my heart goes out to you and to your daughter. And sadly, you know, the experience that you're telling everyone today is really similar to what people have been telling us. And I really, you know, invite people to keep sharing their concerns with us right now through this platform we've set up, our covidvoices.co.uk, because there's a lot of fear about the lack of support around employment protection, about the removal of practical support as well. You know, popping to the shops now isn't what it used to be. And people are very worried about, you know, the government no longer delivering food parcels and medicine.
Well, Rebecca, it's really good to hear your insight on that. It's Rebecca Steinfeld, the Director of Policy at National Voices, and also Lindsay, who has been shielding with her family at the moment. She was talking about the fact that she'd lost her job, unsure about going back to school with her daughter in September. So plenty of concerns. And some of those we'll be putting to Brandon Lewis, Northern Ireland Secretary, in about 10 minutes.